Okay, we're going to call the meeting to order. Okay. Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees of Tuesday, September 11th, 2018. And will the clerk please call, what? Oh, you did? Okay. Will the Vice President please call the roll? And will you make a moment for our student trustee to introduce herself?
No problem. All right. Deborah Feemster.
Here.
Veronica Frankel.
I'm here.
Katie Simon Holland.
Here.
Scott Kelly.
Here.
John Mayer. So he's not coming today. Okay. Melina Raymond here. Angela Taylor.
Here.
And our student, Ananti Ali. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Ananti Ali. I'm a senior at Worcester High School.
Oh, okay. Doesn't need a microphone.
My voice is pretty loud in general, so yeah. Yeah, I think I just said it. I'm a senior at Worcester High School. This is my first Board of Trustees meeting, but I'm a part of the Student Advisory Council for Washoe County.
Great. Okay. Welcome, Ananti, and we hope you'll be very engaged today. So we look forward to that. And you probably won't need to turn on your microphone, but we always ask that you do. Okay. All right. On a more somber note, I wanted to ask that we have a moment of silence in recognition of 9/11 and just our memory of all those great public servants and others who gave their lives for others. Thank you very much, and we certainly honor their sacrifice. Mr. Bill Horn, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Horn. Nice to see you. We will move on to public comment, and both the superintendent and I have a comment to make just as an opener. As many of you know, I've received a number of emails and phone calls regarding data privacy and security and a potential data breach, and immediately asked staff to look into this issue. I can share that there has been no data breach of Washoe County School District data, nor has any Washoe County School District student information been compromised. The Washoe County School District is passionately committed to educating students to use technology safely and productively, and I know that the board and the district considers the protection of student data and digital resources to be of the utmost importance. We are aware of community conversations regarding the safety of this data, and we want to assure parents and the community that the district has a comprehensive approach to protecting this data, using every tool available to secure the network. And we are going forward with some more information going out to the public about this in the near future, but I'll turn it over to the superintendent for a moment.
Thank you, President Holland. As educators, we know that it's imperative that our students learn to use technology in research, learning, and everyday life. It is an increasingly important part of our modern world, and we would be failing in our educational mission if we did not prepare them for the world and the workplace of the 21st century. I can assure the public that the Washoe County School District has not had a data breach, nor has any Washoe County School District student information been compromised. All of our 21st century online tools are designed to enhance student learning, and we continue to improve and enhance our vetting process to ensure all tools meet our high standards of data security and student privacy. And as President Simon said, we will be providing some information out to the public soon.
Thank you. JJ, let's go forward with public comment.
Dr. William Tarbell.
Dr. Tarbell, welcome.
For the record, Dr. William Tarbell. I'm here to speak to the data gathering issue. Your statement does not seem to jive with other statements that I have heard about Edmodo and the material that is gathered by them on the students within this district. I do want to point out that there is a photograph in the historic school building up in Virginia City of a teacher, I think second grade, standing there with 65 of her students. I have no doubt that she knew the name of every student and something about their family history and their particular approach to whether or not they wish to be educated. That's appropriate. Educators need to know enough about their students to impart the information that they're responsible to impart. However, dipping into a person's psychology, dipping into personal information about that individual, which can reflect upon family values and family history in such a way as never before gathered, is, it seems to me, unethical and should be illegal. I simply cannot accept the level of intrusion into the minds and bodies of our students. These belong, first of all, these students belong, first of all, to their parents and their caregivers. And they're the ones that should be working with those delicate inner areas of the student's mind and body, not the schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tarbell.
Dahlia Gibson.
Welcome, Ms. Gibson.
Thank you. My name is Dahlia Gibson. I'm here on behalf of Planned Parenthood Marmonte. I would like to make a statement of support for updating the sexual health and responsibility education curriculum with LGBT inclusive material. In 2014, the Washoe County School Board put forward Board Policy 6142.1 that stated a piece of the guiding principles for the SHARE program was, and this is Guiding Principle 1, Section A, Number 4, to provide, quote, strategies to support all students, regardless of gender, race, disability, sexual orientation, or gender identity. That inclusion hasn't happened yet. Our children and our communities deserve quality, non-biased, comprehensive, and inclusive education. It's my understanding, as I was at several of the meetings, that a lot of work was done last year in the SHARE committee, and this board hasn't implemented their recommendations. I can appreciate we have a lot of business happening in our communities. The longer we wait to implement quality material in our schools, especially on sexual health education, the more we put our children and our future at risk, and that includes life-threatening risk. We want everyone empowered to make well-informed decisions about their health. Let's give them the tools to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gibson.
Margaret Martini.
Ms. Martini, nice to see you. Welcome.
Nice to see you. Good afternoon, everyone. Although Ms. Hollins and Ms. Davis's comments, prepared comments, were very rhetorical, I do not believe that they are 100% or appropriately correct. The school board and superintendent have been asked time and time again, correct, the statement should be begged time and time again, for a few years now to educate all parents regarding the dangers of using free third-party software and applications. And time again, you all have chosen to ignore the facts. And now the data breach has come true, irrevocably true. We now know that Washoe County School District children who had an Edmodo account had their student IDs stolen and placed for sale on the dark web. And now that Edmodo has been sold to a Chinese company, the student IDs of any Washoe County child with an Edmodo account is now in the hands of a Chinese company that Edmodo sold to. And the Edmodo student profile of any Nevada student with an Edmodo account is now in the hands of the Chinese, maybe the Chinese government, who knows. It is unconscionable that you all sat and presently sit here responsible for the uninformed parents and now the consequences of your inaction and stupidity. Many of the software and application products used in all Nevada schools are in violation of the only online child privacy protection laws we have in the United States, COPA. Yet you all sit there and ignore the facts of what you are perpetuating. Why are you doing this? Why are you hiding the true information from the parents of the students they have entrusted to you? What is your agenda? It simply cannot be stupidity, or can it? Maybe it's just laziness in doing your job. Incompetence is another probability. Infinite Campus and the Nevada Department of Education use the student ID number to track children's data. A lot of this so-called data is subjective, and the parents are not told that the data is stored forever. Washoe County School District has shown via Edmodo data breach that they cannot keep the students' IDs safe or all the data produced. Why do you sit there and do nothing? What are you afraid of by continuing to refuse to be sure that all parents are completely informed and the lack of protection of their kids' data? Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve Dolan.
Mr. Dolan, welcome.
Steve Dolan in Klein Village. Thank you for your statements regarding paying attention to the information going around regarding Edmodo, Chinese ownership, and all of that. It is very scary on the surface and probably deeper than we realize, but that you're paying attention to it is very important. I think one of the ways to improve the optics of what's going on and the transparency is that you allow parents to opt out and you keep them informed of this type of information that's going around so that they have the opportunity to make a judgment for themselves with regarding their children's use. I think it's very important for your own, positions and to validate what you're saying. Put it out in the public for everyone to see. And again, I appreciate that you're aware of this and that you're looking at it, and I trust that if you do find something, you will tell the parents about what's going on. I can't see you guys being here and not having that type of heart. So please do that. On a second note, I have on several occasions emailed you about the importance of play for our kids and for ourselves. And in the past, I've been on the scheduling advisory board for the children to try and extend their schedules. And I think this is appropriate for part of your discussion today in terms of the schedule for one of the schools. But overall, what we're finding out, Berkeley, Stanford in particular as well, it's very, very important for children to have this playtime and extended summertime vacations. Believe it or not, this learning curve loss is a myth. The way in which children learn and adapt to the education that you're giving them, over the year is to translate that psychologically, internally, into grains of sand falling on the beach and math and things like that. So don't forget that the children don't need more rigor. They need more play, as we all do. It's healthy for all of us. But it's really important for the kids. And Stanford itself, when I was down there with my children, recommended that the computer, which we do need this education, we do need access to computers, but the computer for K through 8 is really the last thing you want to go to. They need to have blocks, they need to have physical representations, and this is a better way for them to learn. Old school, they're going to have computers, phones, etc. So that's not that big an issue. But it is an issue when you're in those lower grades, giving the children their access.
Thank you, Mr. Dolan.
Bill Horn.
Mr. Horn, welcome. Did your son tell you I met him the other day?
Yes, he did.
That was great.
Thank you for the kind words.
Yes.
I appreciate that. Okay. For the record, my name is Bill Horn. President Holland, and members of the Board of Trustees. Trustee Frankel, I'm sorry you have decided not to run for re-election. Your support of our children, their parents, our teachers, and your willingness to support transparency between Washoe County School District and the public is commendable. The parallel I draw between Pearl Harbor, where my uncle survived with his clothes burnt off, and the 17th anniversary of another attack on the United States of America, is shared with sadness and respect. 17 years ago, I was driving to Incline Village around 5 or 6 a.m. with unbelievable excitement in my heart since IVGID and Sierra Nevada College were introducing the first 10 recipients of their jointly sponsorship of a full ride scholarship for graduating seniors from Incline High School at a celebration dinner that evening. The horrible attack on America not only changed that day, but has continued to impact all Americans. I have read enough to know there were people speaking out about the vulnerability of the Hawaiian Islands, as well as people were predicting the second attack on American soil. I have known and worked with John Napolito since 2001 and trust and believe what he has been trying to help make, force, influence, etc., what you need to believe about protecting our children's personal information. If Facebook and Twitter can say I'm sorry, sadly Google couldn't, why can't you? I have witnessed the numerous wasting of public funds by each of you and past trustees, and if you can spend $48,000 on an investigation, which results you will not share with the public, why can't you spend $48,000 to validate for our children, their parents, and our teachers that their personal information is safe? Your legal counsels have said in the past about our children's personal information being hacked or stolen. If it happens, we'll sue. We'll just sue. So those who violate the contract or the law. Tell me, legal counsel and trustees, after the personal information is stolen and the child or an adult graduate's life is ruined, what can money do to repair the damage? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Horn.
Jim Schneider.
Hi, Jim Snyder. And first of all, I'd like to say that the work that the board is doing is heroic. You're not stupid, very intelligent people, very accomplished, and you've read my emails and from others, and so there's no need to rehash that. But I want to share with you the quandary I have between the competency and the well-meaning nature of the members of the board and the board's inability to recognize and acknowledge to the public the risk that is out there. Someday, and it may not be too far from now, it will come to light that another road could have been taken. And the damage that has been done so far in terms of dropping that ink in the water, not being able to get it back, that damage is done. That information is out there. That information is at risk. Moving forward, there are students who could be saved from that risk. So I don't think my quandary is going to be answered here today, but pray for me as I deal with it. Thank you again for your service.
Thank you, Mr. Schneider.
John Eppolito.
My name is John Eppolito. I'm the president of Protect Nevada Children. I'm a former K-12 teacher, and I have 3 kids left in the district. Thank you for your initial comments. Just to make a couple things clear, no one has claimed the school district has had a data breach yet. The school district has very little data on the children. The data is with Infinite Campus and the Nevada Department of Education and these third-party vendors. And it's the Edmodo data breach that first came up about 1.5 years ago, and I came in here and I told you guys about it and I gave you lots of information. It took 1.5 years for you guys to say something. I appreciate it. I don't believe it's accurate though, Katie. I believe that according to Motherboard, which is who everybody in the industry looks at, student IDs and usernames were for sale and hashed passwords were for sale on the dark web. This other entity, Medium 4IQ, did a multi-page report on what the data breach entailed, and they showed the same thing. The student IDs in our county, in Washoe County, the student email addresses and the usernames are the student IDs. I don't know why. It leaves our people very vulnerable, and now Edmodo breached that data only of kids who have Edmodo accounts. We're not saying every kid in the district. So we know that's happened. Since then, it took 1.5 years for the district to say something that I don't believe, frankly. Now we know Edmodo has been sold to the Chinese. Maybe in 1.5 years you guys will deny that too, but in the meantime, several entities have written about this sale, and they're very concerned about United States children. We can't even police the vendors that are here in the United States. The other thing that we know is that most of the third-party applications, including the ones used in the schools, are not in compliance with COPA. So that's what's supposed to protect children under 13. Cal Berkeley did a study on that earlier this year. You people didn't tell the parents about that. You won't tell them about the data breach. At least you won't give them the true information. You won't tell them their children's student profiles. And that's what this is all about. And I gave you guys articles about this starting 3 years ago. Politico, New York Times, and the right has written. The biggest thing that's happening here are the profiles these third-party vendors are creating on our children. And that's what the Chinese now have. It's that profile. That Edmodo profile is very rich because not only is it schoolwork, they want to know their attitudes, their ideas. It's about, it's like a Facebook plus schoolwork. They have way more data than Google or Facebook will ever have about adults. Please allow us to opt out of the student email addresses, which is exposing our student IDs to others, and all third-party vendors. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ippolito.
I only have one of these.
That's all I have at this time.
Thank you, JJ. I do want to make a couple of comments. We do take seriously this information. Edmodo did have a breach, and that's absolutely correct, and did reach out to the 77 million users directly who were affected by that. The student ID number is encrypted in multiple levels so that a student ID number cannot allow anyone access to any personal data or information. So, but I am concerned, and there are many of us who are concerned about this. We are considering two actions. One is to retain outside consulting to assess whether any of our student personal information has been compromised. We're confident that it has not, but we want to have someone else verify that. And then we're also interested in pursuing discussions with the state because the state, as you correctly note, Mr. Ippolito, does manage or does oversee the Infinite Campus information. And we really do believe that this is a statewide issue, that there is an opportunity for greater and more advanced cybersecurity attention statewide. So I do want to let you know that we do hear you and are concerned. I've been doing my own research on, you know, all of the things that you've talked about and Motherboard and the various studies that have been done. So I just wanted to share that with everyone, and we can move on from there. Okay. Our next item is action to adopt the agenda, and do we not have to take off the, or did we already take off the, oh, we did. We took off the auditor appointment. Okay, so we're good to go with the agenda as presented. Does anyone have a motion?
Move to approve.
Well, I second.
Okay, all right. Motion by Trustee Frankel, second by Trustee Dr. Taylor. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, and next item is the consent agenda, and do we have any public comment on the consent agenda? Okay, we did have some excellent questions from Trustee Frankel, and just so you know, Trustee Frankel, I had asked similar questions before the agenda was prepared, so thank you for your questions. Yes, and as usual, they'll be part of the public record. The responses to the questions will be posted, as well as the responses to the questions. Okay, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda items 2.02 through 2.10?
So moved, Madam President.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor.
I'll second.
Second by Vice President Raymond. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, 3.01, we have had several items come before us regarding occupational and physical therapists, and I just want to say before you begin, Dr. Green and Ms. Ellison, that we very much, at least I very much appreciate the presentation that you've put together to put this issue in national and regional context, so thank you for doing that, and please go ahead.
Good afternoon. Byron Green, Chief Student Services Officer for the record. Thank you, President Hall and members of the board, Superintendent Davis. I'm here with my colleague, Emily, from Human Resources. And you are correct. We have Student Services has been coming to the board quite frequently over the last several years with different contracts specifically around occupational therapists, some physical therapists, but mostly occupational. So we do appreciate the opportunity to provide some clarity about why we continue to come back, and actually maybe even have a conversation or provide feedback about really what is coming down the road for us and how this directly impacts our students, and does not allow the district to fully or adequately be able to meet the needs of students, at least in regards to their occupational needs. So this afternoon, we are going to do a brief overview. Thank you so much to Emily for helping us with the national issues. We are going to try to focus the Washoe County School District issues, talk about really what we've attempted to do to remediate or address these concerns, talked about the finances, and then requesting approval and answer any questions from the trustees. So at that point, I'll turn it over to Emily.
We did want to share some information at the national level just to give some context to this conversation, because this is definitely not just a Washoe County School District issue. When we pulled together some stats that I think are really kind of telling of the situation and what we're facing right now in terms of being able to staff for the occupational therapy positions. And the first bullet point is that OT unemployment at the national level is currently about 0.5%. So there's virtually no unemployment among this profession. And we look to our partner Career Builder for some data on what they're seeing in terms of candidates who are posting their resumes on Career Builder and what they're seeing in terms of volume. And so they provided a report of the top 10 markets that are recruiting for occupational therapists. Those are large metropolitan areas, and they quantified that by saying, these are the places that have the most postings for occupational therapists. And in those markets, there are 43 jobs for every one candidate that has their resume posted. So there is very low supply and very high demand, not only in this area but across the country. The Bureau of Labor Statistics is reporting that there's anticipated 24% growth in the next year for occupational therapists, and that equates to an additional 31,000 jobs, or right around there. But the profession itself and the number of new occupational therapists that will be joining the workforce is just about 500 per year at 7.4%. I'm sorry, that's 6.7% in terms of the supply of occupational therapists joining the workforce. So there's a definite gap in terms of who's available and who we can utilize to fill these positions. The visual on the other side of the screen shows a snapshot of wages, and the darkest blue areas are where the average wage is the highest. Nevada, unfortunately, is in dark blue, and the range for that is between $85,000 and $103,000 approximately per year. So not only is it a very competitive space in terms of the number that are available, but we're also competing from a compensation perspective.
Thank you, Emily. Also to give context, because I know President Holland is really good to help me not remember to do acronyms, but occupational therapy, just to make sure there's a general understanding for those people maybe who are watching, occupational therapy really provides greater support for students who just need daily living activities, everything from opening a door, a car door, a door handle, versus physical therapy, which is more about the body itself and building that strength. So they may focus on similar things, but there is a difference between occupational therapy and physical therapy. Up here, we do see the issues in regards to what we're facing here in Washoe County. We do have currently 8 occupational therapists and 2 certified occupational therapy assistants, or CODAs. And those are staff who do have a bachelor's degree and a different type of certification, who work under the license of occupational therapist who has a bachelor's and a master's degree. So they can take on a greater workload, but we do have to reduce the workload of the occupational therapist if they're supervising an occupational therapist assistant. We do have 2 of those. We currently are contracting with 5 providers, which are providing approximately 14 therapists, and we have 8 independent contractors. Now, from our perspective, we would hope that we could identify all OTs as Washoe County School District employees. That would be the best case scenario for our students, for our community, and for our staff. The challenge is, I think as Emily shared, is if you look at the mean average for the salary for those in the community versus our occupational therapists who are currently on the teacher contract. So they must follow the teacher's contract and how they go for years of progression and salary. It's a very disparate difference of that salary. When OTs are not available, which has happened for us now, I believe this was the 3rd year. And the reason I say OTs are not available from the start of the year, we try to have all contracts in place by May for the next year, but then some providers, even by no fault of their own, OTs quit and leave. So maybe we had this provider providing 4 or 5 OTs in May, we now start the year and we're down 2 or 3. What happens then is our district is still responsible for providing those OT services even though we don't have an OT. So that kind of builds up. So if Emily's son needed OT services and we were unable to provide that until October, November, we still have to provide those services, and also then the back services, which now creates a significantly larger problem. Obviously, we want to make sure we're meeting the needs of students, but from a staffing perspective, it essentially doubles the problem that we're facing throughout the year. In 2020, they're changing the licensure requirements for OTs. So any new OT who's going to be hired, at least in the state of Nevada, is going to be required to have a doctorate degree. So what have we been doing? Well, we've obviously attempted to hire more OTs, been working with human resources to see if we can find OTs who either have a husband or wife here, they love Reno, they want to work here, they want to be part of our state retirement system, they want to be part of our great district, and we've been trying to do everything we can to hire. We've also tried to expand the hiring of CODAs, which has less of a standard of requirement, but those are very difficult to hire as well. We attempt to contract with multiple providers. The goal with that is we would rather contract with more providers and have more weighting so we can be more selective. The challenge is every school district, not only in the state of Nevada, but across the country, is trying to connect with those exact same providers for the exact same OTs to come work for their districts. We also have attempted to increase the salary of OTs, so we're providing a competitive salary. The challenge is the OTs, as I shared earlier, are underneath the teacher's contract. And I don't know if Emily can speak to that, but we have approached and had conversations with our district to see if we can pay that differently, but we've not been successful up to this point.
I think the only thing that I would add to that is that, as you know, compensation is a mandatory subject of bargaining, so it's a little more complex than just increasing the salary for a particular segment of a bargaining unit.
So we included the spending history, and I want to publicly show why the trustees maybe had a concern if you look at FY 18-19, and hopefully I can explain this well enough for everybody to see the big jump there. So we're actually looking at actual, and this only includes contracts with our independent contractors and providers. This does not include the salaries of our Washoe County School District occupational therapists, or CODAs, and it does not take into account the cost that it requires for us to provide that compensatory education if we are failing to provide that OT service. So you see it grow up progressively from FY 16, 17, 18. The reason the FY 19 is so large is kind of what I was explaining earlier. We go to a provider, they say, how many OTs do you need? We say, we need 4 more. They say, okay. So we come to the trustees. By the rules, if it goes over $100,000 increase, we come to the board to get approval to hire those 4. We typically average about $100,000 for each OT, even though we don't quite spend that much, based upon comp ed and ESY, as well as regular OT services and supports. The provider says, great, we'll get you 4. 2 months later, the provider was only able to provide maybe 2. So then we have to go to another provider. We need 3 more OTs at this time now, maybe not 2. It kind of keeps going. So we end up coming back to the trustees to see these large amounts, but we're not using the entire amount. So right now when you see the 1.7, that is the PO amount, not the actual. So you're actually seeing a larger PO amount because each provider has a larger amount, but they're unable to provide us the number of OTs that we need. So with that, we open up for any questions from the trustees.
Questions? Yes, Trustee Frankel and then Trustee Taylor.
Thank you very much for the clarification. I too really appreciate this because I've often, as you know, had questions about for the last 4 years asking these questions about why we see these. And I appreciated the clarification on the PO amount. Is there an upper limit to the actual in terms of what is spent? The PO you're requesting is 1.7 million approximately. So what is it's not, you're saying that will not all be spent, but it's in the contracts, but will not all be spent. So what's the anticipated amount that will be?
It's great. Let me go back here if I can. We anticipate, if you just look at the trends, we're not seeing a significant increase from FY18. Obviously, costs do go up every year. All the things that were coming to the trustees today have already been approved, I believe, from the trustees. We're just trying to be transparent and come back and say these are all of the POs that have been reviewed. So we're showing truly what we're trying to do. So I think the challenge, at least from my perspective, is we are going to see a slight increase every year, but we need to get a handle if it's possible. So we're providing services from the beginning, so we're not having a greater cost incurred based upon our comp ed. One thing that we're looking to do is once we have our new system for an entire year Excelify by December 1st, we will be better able to run reports and look at the caseloads of staff. So for example, our speech therapists are our largest related service. By Nevada academic NAC, they can have a caseload up to 55 students. What that doesn't take into play is the number of minutes required by each student. So I could have a caseload of 50 students, 20 of those students could be consult, which means I'm not really providing a lot of direct support, or I could have other students with significant amount of time. What we're wanting to do for all of our related services is look at those caseloads and make sure that if I'm a speech path, that I just don't have half my consult. I actually am weighted so I can look at my total minutes, and we're distributing the work across all SLPs so we have a better weighted and a better service for students. We'd like to be able to do the same thing for OTs, PTs, and everybody. You're welcome.
Other questions? Dr. Taylor.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you for the information and historical look. It's disconcerting to say the least. This is a vulnerable part of our population, and we want to give them as the best service as we can. My question is, going back to the teacher salary schedule, is that, I understand that the occupational therapists are under that schedule. Is that a negotiation issue from like with the WEA, or if we as a board decided, hey, we want to jump into that a little bit and see if there may be a better way to approach it? What are those steps? What are those barriers, I should say?
So what the process will look like, because we are going to bargaining next year with WEA, is that this board will decide kind of what the parameters are for bargaining and whether or not an item like that, or any number of items, will be included in what the direction will be for the conversation from the district perspective.
Yes, Superintendent.
In my mind, I remember historically, were they originally part of the administrators union and then there was a flip over time? Like there's some history. Don knows this, but we're new to this. Yeah. But I think we probably need to look at some of the history of how it arrived.
That's a good question. That's not something that's come up before, and I know I have gotten a little insight into bargaining movement that's happened, but let me see if I can verify that. Yeah.
Okay. Other questions? Well, it's certainly a promising field for young people to go into. I wish we could train some of our students and find a way to fast track our own students into that profession. Let's be thinking about that.
I think that's one of the biggest challenges for our market too, is that we don't have an OT program and we don't have a CODA program here, so we're always drawing from outside to bring candidates into this area.
Much work to be done. Well, thank you for the update. Thanks for the clarification. And we know you're doing everything you can. And as Trustee Taylor said, this is a vulnerable population, and we certainly want to do everything we can. So thank you for the update. This is an action item. Do we have any public comment on this? Okay, no public comment. So I would entertain a motion. Vice President Raymond?
I move that the Board of Trustees approves the staffing agreements between Washoe County School District and Ardor Health Solutions, Delta Healthcare Providers, National Staffing Solutions, Progressus Therapy LLC, and Solient Health to provide occupational and physical therapists for the Office of Student Services for the 2018-2019 fiscal year for an amount not to exceed $1,959,194.
Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Dr. Taylor. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, Dr. Green and Ms. Ellison. Mr. Searcy and Mr. Etchert, you're up next. Presentation and discussion regarding a major project's construction and land acquisition update of current, planned, and proposed projects, including elementary schools in the areas of Northwest Reno, Southeast Reno, North Valley's Cold Springs and Spanish Springs, middle schools in the proposed areas of Sun Valley, Spanish Springs, and Arrowcreek, high schools in the proposed areas of Butler Ranch, Wildcreek Golf Course, Central Sparks, and Cold Springs, and potential support services locations. Mr. Searcy. Welcome.
Actually, I'm going to start today while Adam's setting up the presentation. So
okay.
Pete Etchart,
Thank you, Mr. Etchart.
Chief Operating Officer. So a version of this presentation is presented regularly to the Capital Funding Protection Committee, but we recognize that it had been some time since actually you had heard this presentation of where we are with our major projects. So the work that's being accomplished is really unprecedented, at least in many decades here at Washoe County School District. And I believe today's update will show you the amazing volume of planning and construction work that is being completed. And we are only talking today about the major projects, which are a small number as compared to the numerous critical repair projects that are also happening. And I'm sure, as you are well aware, these are not easy projects. Many of these face a lot of constraints, whether it be budget constraints or critical construction labor shortages, neighborhood concerns, etc. And what really makes it possible is the great team that we have here at Washoe County School District. I can't thank this team enough, because it really does take a team. Adam and Tammy Zimmerman, Tony McMillan, and Teresa Golden, and the entire capital projects and facility management team, Andrea Sullivan and the purchasing team, Lindsay Anderson and the work that she does for us, Irene Payne, Riley Sutton and the communications team, Neil and Jason Trevino and their teams, and obviously our superintendent and Kristen and David and Robert and everybody on leadership team. We meet weekly as a growth and overcrowding working group, and that's how this work gets accomplished. And I could go on and on and on, but none of this would be possible without the passion and the hard work that this team shows. And it really, in my eyes, really does show. And as we all realize, we have a mandate from our community to deal with overcrowding that we have, this pent-up overcrowding that we've faced for years in our community, and to build schools as quickly as possible. But we also have to make sure that we are planning for the future. And I think this is the difference, that we now have the sustainable source of funding, that we can start planning for the future. So you're going to hear about a lot of land acquisition projects today. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Adam to kind of walk you through this presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Adam. Mr.
Okay.
Searcy.
Yes, good afternoon. Adam Searcy, Chief Facilities Management Officer. Thank you for having me. Wanted to start off, as Pete mentioned, kind of giving a nod back to the team. This tremendous amount of work I'm going to walk everybody through. Specifically, in addition to the folks that Pete mentioned, wanted to give a shout out to a gentleman named Mike Boster. You guys might be familiar with him. He often skates through on consent at these meetings, but he has been a busy beaver on all this work as a school planner, and we really appreciate his work. One of your attachments today is this sort of multicolored timeline graph. You've seen this probably many times. I'm going to kind of walk us through these projects in the general order that is depicted here. It's very much in that order for a reason. These projects were specifically identified on the ballot measure in 2016. And today is a little bit deeper dive into how we're bringing these into focus. I will also mention the very first line on this chart is a line called school repairs, and it's commonly referred to as capital renewal. But when we talk about the staff and the team and all the work that we've been doing to bring these projects to fruition, it's easy sometimes to overlook that line item in and of itself represents over 200 separate projects since 2016, or annually since the increased capital funding, that each of which makes huge impacts on our classrooms and takes up quite a bit of staff time. So without further ado, I decided to try a different format. The graph or the timeline is neat to look at, but sometimes people don't know where Harris Ranch is necessarily. So we're gonna take a little bit of a trip around the county, the district, and stop me if you need to. If you get disoriented, stop me, because this is sort of a different view, but I thought it'd be fun. So right off the bat, we got started right after the election down here with an addition to Damonte Ranch High School. You guys have all been there. Many of you were at the ribbon cutting as recently as April 2017. We hustled and got better than 24 classrooms into service, made a huge impact on what was our most overcrowded school at that time, high school at that time. Next up, currently we are under construction at what was known as an elementary school in South Meadows, now known as, and forevermore, as Nick Pulikitis Elementary. This is a screenshot from our webcam just a couple of days ago. You can see those walls really coming up out of the ground. You can feel what those classrooms are going to be like when you're on that job site. And I kind of wanted to point out for anybody that's not been there physically, just how really lovely it is next to Steamboat Creek. That area where you see that stockpile is going to be the playground, and there's tremendous wildlife, of course, horses. Really excited for that school to open August 2019. Next up on our timeline takes us up to Sun Valley. We've got a planned middle school under construction up there, now known as Desert Skies Middle School. I showed this from two different vantage points, also to kind of bring attention to its physical position. This school is on the north end of Sun Valley. If you haven't been up there, these photos don't do the view justice. It's really perched on the top end of Sun Valley, and you can virtually see as far as the atmosphere will let you towards the south end of the Truckee Meadows. But you can see it's coming out of the ground as well. It's scheduled to be open August 2019. And if you're familiar with DePoli Middle School's footprint, you'll notice the similarities there. But it's well on its way. And moving over to Spanish Springs Area Middle School is the sister middle school to Desert Skies, now known as Sky Ranch Middle School. So this is a different vantage point, kind of taken from the west looking east, but just about everything you see aside from our construction site is going to be residential development in the next couple of years. So we're right on pace. This is in the Kiley North subdivision, if you're familiar with this area. But we're right on pace to get this school open for August 2019, and we'll come back and talk about this sister elementary school here in a moment. I wanted to pause. Oh, we're pausing. I wanted to pause just for a second and mention that in August 2019, when we do hopefully open up all three of those school sites, with the domino effect of the elevation of sixth graders and various rezone actions that this community and this board has taken, we anticipate relieving overcrowding impacts across nearly a third of the school district with just these three school sites. So things are going well. We're very excited about the progress, and lots more currently in planning. So again, following with the rainbow chart, We have Expand Nutrition Services. Hopefully most of you are familiar with this location, kind of off of McCarran, East McCarran, and this is the Truckee River right next to our site. It's very cramped right up at the end of this Spice Island cul-de-sac. The staff and the cooks are cramped inside. We're under construction as we speak with some additional storage, and we've got a phase 2 of that project that's going to come before this board later this year and break ground early in 2019, significantly improving the capacity at that facility. And then our chart takes us down to Arrowcreek. So again, watching the cursor and following around the Truckee Meadows, we're down here off of Arrowcreek Parkway and Thomas Creek near Huntsberger Elementary School. This is a rendering that some of you may have seen of our proposed middle school. We're doing well with that. The land acquisition is nearly complete. The comment period has ended, and we're awaiting final word from the Forest Service any day now. We do actually have an important public hearing next Tuesday, a week from today, at the County Commission for a grading permit on that site. We'll encourage anyone who's interested in supporting that school to please attend.
Adam, that's 2 weeks from today, isn't it? The 25th?
It is scheduled for the 18th.
Is it? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-oh. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
So this one will look, again, similar to DePoli, as well as the 2 under construction right now, Desert Skies and Sky Ranch. But this additionally will relieve a tremendous amount of students. We estimate nearly 10,000 existing students between the elevation of 6th graders and various rezoning moves. A lot of students will be in less crowded conditions because of the opening of this one school. And right now we are still targeting an open date of August 2020. Okay, zooming back out and heading up to Wildcreek. Wildcreek Area High School, as it was identified on the 2016 ballot, today looks a little bit like this. And I show these 2 exhibits. One is kind of zoomed out to illustrate how we've moved the site plan to the north on what is currently Wildcreek Area Golf Course, preserving a significant amount, the executive course, par 3, 9-hole course, the clubhouse, and between 20 and 30 additional acres that the county will retain ownership of and potentially repurpose into the future. But more importantly, the zoomed in version, and again, this is schematic in nature, but represents a new comprehensive high school that will serve our students that currently go to Hug High School, currently go to Spanish Springs High School, and many other high schools in this area. We're very excited about the progress. Currently also on pace for an opening of August 2022. Closely tied to this Wildcreek High School is the Hug High School Repurpose project. It's been referred to by a variety of names, but the intention is to take the students currently attending Hug High School, move them over into the new high school at Wildcreek, and then set about immediately renovating and repurposing the existing Hug High School campus specifically into a career and technical academy. This would be a full-service, comprehensive high school experience focused on career and technical education that would draw from the entire Washoe County School District. So anticipate receiving significant enrollment, overcrowding relief from the opening of this school. Our goal is to have this repurposed and back open 1 year on the heels of Wildcreek 2023. Okay, so next up on our rainbow chart is a line item called Core School Investments. I've got a couple examples of that, but before I get into some of these examples, I want to kind of just talk about the concept. Of course, we're building all these new tremendous schools with these updated facilities and whatnot, and we wanted to make sure that, not only did existing schools get the attention they deserve from capital renewal, but, that there was equity across the various facilities and that students at all of our different schools were kind of given the same physical opportunities. That process really started kind of on day one with the crafting of our educational specifications, setting the standards for the spaces and the layouts and some of the elements of our new schools. We've completed that, and we're now implementing that, physically implementing that in our new school construction. And the time has now come to go back and attempt to implement some of those investments in our core schools. So, I've got a couple of examples I kind of want to run through. First, highlighting at Swope Middle School. So I've just talked briefly about how much benefit we get from the construction of our new middle schools, which is built on a 6th, 7th, and 8th grade model. Many of our older middle schools were not constructed with that in mind. It is our standard from an academic delivery model to have 6th, 7th, and 8th graders housed together in a middle school scenario. And currently, Swope, with its numerous feeder elementary schools, does not allow for that. So at this point, we have hired an architect, assembled a team, and we're embarking on really a feasibility study at this point as to how we might modify Swope Middle School, not only to expand the capacity to accommodate 6th graders, but also add some of those other facility elements that are currently a part of our middle school ed spec that would provide a little more equity between Swope Middle School and, say, Desert Skies Middle School in the future, as well as other opportunities. So this, remains to be seen a little bit, but I wanted to bring this out today to discuss that, we are moving forward with some ideas related to core school investments. A couple other examples.
Adam, just a quick question on that. Any idea of time frames on that?
It's difficult to say because we are really just studying it, but I will go out and say it's been stated across our team. Our goal is to have this completed and open for the start of school 2021.
Wow, at Swope?
Many hurdles to overcome. We haven't had public conversations. We haven't deeply investigated the technical hurdles.
I won't hold you to it, so that was unfair of me to ask, but okay.
No, but it's very important and it's needed, and there are elementary schools that feed Swope who are struggling with overcrowding.
Yeah.
And we don't necessarily have the ability to elevate the 6th graders to Swope like we do at a lot of these other schools. Even with the opening of Arrowcreek Middle School, the domino impacts of Arrowcreek Middle School really don't look to likely improve situation at Swope.
Yeah.
That's really why we started there. I think it's a realistic goal at this point to say that we're completing this feasibility study. It's designed in 2019, construction in 2020 into 2021, and completion and open for August 2021. That would not mean that the school is unoccupied or not functioning in the interim, but yeah, that's our goal.
Which is a complication, trying to improve a school and rebuild and add to a school when you've got it open is challenging.
This is going to be a very tricky puzzle.
Yeah.
Any type of significant remodel or retrofit is always going to be a real challenge.
And it's landlocked, and
I mean, the baseball field's really not on the table. You can see the existing neighborhood surrounding the site is not up for discussion. So we're going to have to be creative, but we've got a great team and we've got some good ideas.
They'll have to relocate to Rayleigh's in the meantime. It's challenging. It's going to take everybody's best thinking. Thank you. Oh, yes, Trustee Frankel.
No, and I appreciate the emphasis on the discussion about the core school investments. And I know one of the areas I'm particularly passionate and concerned about are the areas, it's the central core of our city, primarily the area around Vaughn Middle School. And so Vaughn as a middle school, I was just kind of curious in terms of this process. It sounds like Swope is the first real focused area that you're going to be targeting, and I think that's great. I just wondered, do you have a sense of a timeline for some of the other schools, starting with the middle schools, so that because we are moving to that model of 6, 7, 8, and we want to make sure that all the schools have the same infrastructure as you mentioned. So do you have a sort of a long-term timeline for how some of those other core schools are going to be refurbished, renovated?
So with regards to Vaughn stands to receive significant benefit from an overcrowding standpoint with the opening of Arrowcreek Middle School. So that's something potentially on the 2020 horizon for Vaughn. As far as the broader program, I do have a couple other examples that we're at the opening stages of looking at. It doesn't include Vaughn, but I think from, again, with the best bang for the buck with the middle school standpoint, we'll likely be focusing on other middle schools maybe first. Pine and O'Brien come to mind as opportunities that we've discussed as being maybe next in line for analysis and possible construction. There's also some synergies, with Swope, Sparks Middle School and Dilworth are of similar design. Even Vaughn has some similarities. There may be some transfer or applicability to our solution we come up with at Swope that we might be able to slightly modify and retrofit those kind of sibling middle schools with. So I don't have a specific timeline for you, but this is a lot of the rest of this presentation is just an update to you guys on the stuff that we're doing kind of behind the scenes, in addition to what you see under construction.
Thank you. Yes,
So
Dr.
just-
Taylor.
Go ahead. If I may, thank you, Madam President. Adam, just in the same vein in terms of just the moving of sixth graders, which is, I know our model, and it's going to help a great deal. President Katie, Simon and I Simon Holland I just recently had a town hall, and part of a conversation that came up sort of after the fact because we sort of ran out of time was as these moves are made in the Northwest, in particular the Northwest, and adjustments are made and sixth graders are moved to Billinghurst that will based upon projections, that will pretty much make Billinghurst at the full capacity, 99%, 100% or anything like that. Is there any conversation around maybe expanding that capacity or any other residuals? I mean, as we know, there's a lot of building going on out that way, and I think there's some elementary school things that are happening, although Verdi we know will be challenged. But any conversation around the middle school? We really only have Billinghurst out in that area, and then Clayton if you go a little more east.
Billinghurst specifically has not risen to the top as far as our conversations regarding core school investments. I mean, we've presented and discussed at Zoning Advisory Committee a few different times. Like you said, elevation of the sixth graders do place Billinghurst at close to 100% capacity. However, the growth projections in that area are relatively flat. It is a subject for debate. That we continue to have, but at this point, early in the year, we don't see those numbers deviating from our projections. It's certainly an opportunity, and an opportunity that this revenue stream allows us to be flexible on into the future should conditions change. And really, all of the rest of this presentation is very much subject to growth and change. But I mean, to be honest, not much in the way of major expansion or renovation to Billinghurst been discussed at this time.
And I hope that our school planner takes a drive out Old Highway 40 to see the hundreds of houses that are under construction right now in Verdi. So anyway, that'll be, as you said, a subject of great discussion. Thank you. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Again, the funding stream really allows us to be quite nimble, as nimble as building new schools can actually be.
Yeah.
We're in position to respond. Just really quickly, I want to highlight that McQueen High School is also under the same scoping and feasibility analysis that I just described for Swope. Many of you are keenly aware of the many portables that have been there for multiples of decades, and there are serious efforts underway as we speak to conceptualize and ultimately design an expansion for McQueen in the same vein.
Should I not ask for a timeline? No, I'm kidding.
This
Really
one's
don't.
more real. This one's more real. I mean, we've got to pencil it out, but we think it might be on the same or close to the same timeline as Swope, possibly coinciding more so with the opening of Wildcreek, right, 2022.
Mm-hmm. And these things take time, so I mean, just to have it on the radar and know that some things are happening, I think it's really positive.
I really wanted to take this opportunity to bring it to everybody's attention and even the public's attention that there is work taking place on these elements and a whole bunch of other dots on the map here I want to cover. So a couple of quick ones of note. I think this board has seen some land acquisitions that we've taken before you recently. This was a residential property right next to Reno High School. Just a minor thing that I felt fell in this same category. There's also a residential property next to Sparks High School. This was something, this whole block has been strategically identified as an opportunity for acquisition and potential future expansion of Sparks High School. We've taken the first step in that direction here just within the last month or so. You mentioned Verdi also recently. I wanted to take a trip out to the state line, Verdi Elementary School. This is something that's actually developer funded, but we're working very closely with that developer to design and construct 2 new permanent classrooms out there at Verdi Elementary. These are being master planned with the intent of potentially expanding that by 6 more for a full wing of 8 additional. Fully know that would likely warrant modifications to lunchroom and playground and things of that nature. Again, this core school investments category, I think it falls into that category where we do have an opportunity to add on or modify existing schools. And, you know, we're talking about not just a couple of dollars to do something like this, but it's more cost effective than building a new school in certain circumstances. So there's a lot of activity going on there. You know, and I don't have an exhibit for it, but it just came up yesterday. I wanted to make mention of our energy retrofit projects. If you guys are familiar with the work that Jason Geddes and McKinstry is doing across really all of our school sites across the district, this is being funded through our same program. Upgrades the lighting environments in our classrooms, and I think very much is a core school investment type of category. So hustling through the rainbow chart a little bit more, we've got expand transportation yards. We've got 3 transportation yards. I'll start at the north. If you're familiar with this site, way up here, kind of opposite Lemon Valley Drive exit. This is an aerial of our existing bus yard. Several months ago, we were able to acquire about 4 acres of sagebrush adjacent to that property. Timeline on development of that is to be determined, but we've acquired the property and we'll be ready to adjust as growth dictates. Central Yard, way over here, near Vista Exit and Sparks off of Kleppy. Another aerial of our existing bus yard. We've been fortunate beneficiaries of the encasement of the North Truckee Drain, which previously ran right through our property and flooded regularly. This is now in a box culvert, and there's dirt over it, and it's now much more usable property for our buses and for our transportation yard. This little corner, about 3/4 of an acre, is where the mobile grounds facility has been. We've presented to the board in the past. This flooded tremendously. It's like the low point of the site. We're relocating that as we speak down to the Brown Center property. So in essence, this is going to become another ½ acre, 1/4 acre of usable space. So when this is all said and done, I think we have it at about 2½ acres of additional space there, really for minimal cost. And then zooming back down to our south yard off of Geiger Grade, we're seeing some efficiencies with the opening of the southeast connector, kind of right between those 2 yards, some more fluidity for the guys there. But really, this is a unique situation. There's some development here on the top side of this exhibit. In this instance, north is to the right, but there's some apartments going in right next to this site. And we've kind of partnered with them on some easements and some access adjustments. And what it's allowed us to do is to develop a project to expand about 24 parking stalls into what was a drainage way. They're making some modifications to this drainage way. We're able to partner with them on that. And again, very cost effectively expand our capacity there. So not as fancy as new school construction, but very important aspect of our operations, and we're making serious positive progress on all 3 sites. Okay, next up, this one's labeled, originally titled Elementary School at the North Valleys Area. It's right across the street from the North Transportation Yard. If you guys are familiar with like the North Valley's regional park up there off of Sky Vista, we're going to zoom in and you'll see it here. Next board meeting, we'll be coming back with the second of 2 exchange items. Mr. Consent, Mike Boster, will be here asking to do this deal, but we're really excited about this. This will relieve overcrowding at several elementary schools in the North Valley, specifically Alice Smith. And it's being master planned within this this proposed residential community. Here's what it's conceptually anticipated to look like.
And what's the timeline on that? They're moving a lot of dirt right there.
They are, and we're right there with them. We'll be designing that in 19, constructing it in 20 and 21.
Wow.
August 21 is the anticipated open date for
Great.
that school, as well as the next one. Well, you know what? I want to take you back over to Spanish Springs because that's really the one that's next up from an elementary school standpoint. We saw this picture before, right next to the middle school. This was a 30-plus acre site anticipated to house not only the middle school, but also this location right here is going to be an elementary school. It's going to be off the same model as what's being built for Polaquitas, and we think this is going to be a great combo site similar to what we have elsewhere. This one will go out to bid this winter, and we hope to bring a construction contract to bear spring 2019 and on pace for August 2020 opening. So the middle school is 2019, this
Wow.
elementary school is 2020.
Holy smokes.
And then the elementary school, yeah, there's a lot. The elementary school up in Lemon Valley here is 2021. Wow. And I wanted to talk a little bit about something we have cooking up in Cold Springs. Okay, so way up here near Cold Springs Middle School, anybody that's familiar with Nancy Gomes Elementary School knows that not only is she very overcrowded, but the 5th graders are up in the middle school
Yeah,
right now.
which they're not happy about. The
It's not a
parents
great
aren't happy.
situation.
Yeah.
We got them another portable classroom just this summer. We're doing the best we can, but I found this graphic particularly compelling. This is, a rough representation of where our elementary school students going to Gomes currently live, and it really jumps off the page at you as to where that new elementary school maybe wants to be.
Yeah.
So we're having some pretty exciting conversations with the private landowner around this area, as well as Washoe County, about some different concepts that might result in an elementary school being built in and around this area. And because of the dire need, growth and overcrowding up there, we are pushing very hard for this to be open by August 2021.
So let's see, how many graduating teachers will we have by 2021? We've got to up the ante on getting people through the training for teachers.
A lot of growth with students, but also, these will be the distribution of the existing students that are overcrowded in Gomes, and the 5th graders coming back down out of the middle school into the elementary school. So a couple more, as I continue on, a couple more that are really further out, more kind of in a planning stage or a land acquisition stage type of development. But I want to take you back down to South Meadows. There's still tremendous growth down there. Despite the opening of Polaquitas, we still look to need additional elementary schools in the South Meadows area. And this one I've labeled as an elementary school at Rio Wrangler. We currently own this property in blue. You can sort of see the outline of Rio Wrangler Parkway right here. This is Damonte Ranch High School. Brown Elementary School is down in this neck of the woods. Pretty much everything you see pasture right now is going to be homes within the next 5 to 10 years, and then some, including this space in front of our school. So we're actively working with the developer. They plan to break ground in 2019, and we'll be in a position to build this school, as growth dictates.
Who's developing that? property?
It's a Nevada Tri-Partners,
Yeah, okay.
do Loretto.
Yeah, okay.
But again, just happy to be in a situation where we're having an active conversation with them, planning kind of complementary improvements.
Great. And I know they've been good partners with us over the years, so.
Yep. So,
Yep,
you
Dr.
bet.
Taylor?
I'm sorry, I may have missed this. On our map, we have 2 potential elementary schools at Stonegate. Is that an either or?
It is.
Or a both, or do we need them both? I mean, I know
Everything's
it's
growth dependent.
right.
But it is projected that with the full build out of Stonegate, that it would actually support 2 full elementary schools.
Okay.
So I'm going to talk really about one. The second one is probably 10 plus years
Okay.
out.
Okay.
But we do have an agreement with Stonegate that contemplates ultimately 2 elementary school sites. We'll go up to Cold Springs again and talk about the high school, actually, because that's pretty real as well. If you're familiar with that area, this is 395 White Lake Parkway there, that interchange. Stonegate's kind of to the south and west, most of the development, but on the other side of the highway is where we anticipate our second high school being constructed. We're in active discussion with the Stonegate developers to really master plan that 200 or so acres, again, with complementary adjacencies of high-density residential, public parks, commercial spaces that work well with high schools, possible shared parking, shared fields, things like that. It's exciting to just be a part of the master planning of that community, knowing that a high school wants to be there too. So this is quite a ways out, but again, wanted to mention that there's some active planning and conversations going on there. Wanted to also mention an elementary school at Northgate. We're going back up to Northwest Reno. This is something that we continue to investigate. Depending on enrollment numbers, depending on growth, this could be an opportunity. This is the old Northgate area golf course, currently owned by a variety of partners you see here: City of Reno, Washoe County, Special Assessment District, etc. But depending on growth, again, this is just an opportunity that we're exploring for a potential elementary school site.
And that would be on the east side of the old Northgate? Where
Yeah,
the
right.
clubhouse is now, kind of?
Most likely it would be generally in the vicinity of where the old clubhouse still stands today. There's definitely some challenges. It's not exactly a flat site. Access isn't great, but there's not a lot of available options for a new school site there. So we've explored it. At this point, we're not pursuing it too aggressively, really just monitoring the enrollments. But trying to secure this land. I keep coming before boards and capital funding and saying we want to proceed with this project, and they say, well, do you own the property yet? And, it's a delicate balance because we're trying to be, we're trying to move very quickly, and we're trying to be flexible and fluid with where growth kind of moves and what the enrollment populations indicate. So just wanted to bring that up for discussion. Couple more bullets. Harris Ranch, way up north off of Pyramid Highway. I personally haven't been there myself, but I've been getting a number of inquiries way up north of Spanish Springs Elementary. A number of inquiries from the developers. It's looking to change hands, but they remain fairly committed to donating a school site to us. We'll see what ends up happening, but we'll certainly be bringing action before you. And if this turns out to be several hundred single-family units, we'll likely build an elementary school there in the not-so-distant future. Wanted to take us back down to South Meadows and talk about potentially our third high school. It was identified on the ballot as a Southeast McCarran Butler Ranch area high school. Right, so down kind of in this area, if you guys are familiar with the development currently under discussion known as Daybreak, it's kind of down in this area. The Southeast Connector Veterans Parkway kind of runs through here. We've got South Meadows, Hidden Valley, Pembroke, Mariloma, etc. Right now we're just investigating 3 potential school sites. A couple are owned by UNR, a couple is privately owned by Daybreak and the BLM, or one rather, this blue one. Each of them have some challenges, but again, really trying to look as far forward as we can and plan for these sites and acquire the property well in advance. This stands to be likely our 3rd new high school of the program, quite a few years out, growth dependent, but we're trying to plan for the future there. Let's see here. I wanted to mention 3 more potential elementary school sites, and then I'll wrap it up. Right now, this is one we actually own, elementary school site at North Vista, way up almost at the top of Vista to Wingfield. It's at a cross street known as Passage. It's a little 8-acre site that we may or may not need depending on kind of the enrollment patterns, but we do own that outright at this time, and here's just a conceptual graphic of what an elementary school on that site might look like. A lot of growth up in Spanish Springs. It's really one of the most intense kind of student population growth areas that we've seen the last couple of years. So watching that closely. Take a trip then back out to Stonegate. You mentioned that, Trustee Taylor. We do have an exhibit for at least the first of potentially 2 elementary school sites. This is now on the other side of the highway from the high school site, and this is a draft of their tentative map. So this would represent like 800 homes, something like that, right off of the freeway, but you know, the scale's pretty large. This is probably about a half a mile, tucked up in next to some open space, things like that. An opportunity to master plan it into the community and get the proper adjacencies and the proper frontages, and then, you know, plan for growth. So when those residents do become occupied and students come out of them, we'll be prepared to send them to school. And then the last one I have here I wanted to mention, also Daybreak, somewhat similar to Stonegate, at least from our perspective in scale. Down in the South Meadows, you know, Pulaquitas and Rio Wrangler we mentioned, but this is a whole nother master plan community that is being discussed right now. We're working on an agreement with them, similar to Stonegate, and making sure that whatever they do develop, that we are considered, the school district is considered, and that we have appropriate school sites set aside and master planned into their community for whatever population that might bring. So that's a wrap. I'm sure I've missed something or other, but I, you know, honestly proud to share this with you guys.
Absolutely.
There's a lot that we've been working on. It's been 22 months since WC1 passed, and it's been a pleasure to work with this team and to be a part of this exciting opportunity for our community.
Well, thank you, Adam, and thank you to the entire team, because we know that there is a lot of work going on from a lot of people. Our staff has been working just incredibly hard on all of this, and I know a lot of the contractors and consultants that are employed by us are really killing themselves to get all this done too, so please convey our thanks. I did have one question. Do we know the build-out population of Washoe County that has been already, we have approvals on the books or we have maps on the books? Do we know what that population is at this point, say in the next decade?
I'm certain we do know that. I don't know that off the top of my head.
It would be interesting to hear that, because it's just, I know that's, you know, that's it's on a lot of people's minds, and certainly that drives our student population forecasts. And as you said, we have to follow the growth. But it would be interesting to know that. Second question I had, when we get, and I know there's not a lot on these maps that are property coming from the BLM or we don't have much of those recreation and public purpose parcels, do we? Where we would be getting parcels of land that are currently in BLM ownership?
Well, the Desert Skies Middle School in Sun Valley, you recall, we acquired from the BLM.
And that one's complete, or the transaction is completed.
Correct. The Arrowcreek Middle School is, you know, a very similar process through the Forest Service, nearly complete. The Southeast McCarran site, one of those sites that I mentioned for a high school, is actually would require partial acquisition through the BLM.
Okay.
There's been one or more other potential elementary school sites. There's an elementary school site in North Valleys,
Okay.
I think, that's owned by the BLM. That's been discussed off and on.
Okay.
You
Well,
know.
they're great opportunities, and I
Yeah.
know you're looking at all of them. Is there a timeline when we are able to get an acquisition from the federal government? Is there a timeline within which we have to begin construction?
Not typically that I'm aware of. There's
Okay.
quite a planning process and a lot of constraints as far as, you can't do anything other than a public school facility on this site,
Mhm.
but I don't recall a specific timeline. There is kind of with private acquisition through NRS, if we condition a developer to require them to sell us a property, it's a little bit of leverage that we do have in this process. If a developer, and we see all of these developments coming from the agencies, so while I don't have that number for you, we are really plugged into the development, what's going on. If we see one and say, I need an elementary school site in there, we do have the ability legally to require them to set aside a site for us. We are then required to purchase it, I believe, within 5 years.
Okay.
And construct it within 10.
Okay.
And if we don't, then it reverts back to the developer. So
Okay.
a little known NRS statute that
No, that's
we've
fair.
utilized to our benefit, and we've
Uh-huh.
actually, I guess, fallen short because of financial situations
Yeah.
where we weren't able to construct and it did revert back to the developer, but we don't have any of those situations currently, really because of the additional revenue stream. We're able to work kind of proactively with these developers, and their response has been favorable, right?
Yeah.
They want to master plan these schools into their communities.
Yeah, it's an asset for them. It's an amenity. From my perspective, the land acquisition program is really key, and it would seem that you all are doing a great job of identifying where might we need things and getting those parcels tied up, because the likelihood is that those parcels are going to continue to increase in cost to us. So certainly that land acquisition program is really important, and thank you for sharing that information. Superintendent, did you have a question
Yes,
or
just
comment?
really fast. I want to thank Adam, Pete, the whole department on the capital side that's doing amazing work. As you know, in the summer months, I get to spend time and hang out with you guys in hard hats and walking buildings. And what I think is really, really awesome is that as we do this work, you get to see other positions in the district, and we see female engineers working for the district, and we're able to tell a story to our students about opportunities for jobs outside of teaching, because when we go into the schools, you want to be a teacher, they say no, right? But then when we start talking about the plethora of jobs on the operational side that can be afforded, and we have so many stories of people starting as custodians or in food service, and now they're like supervisors and doing work. I think it's just amazing. It speaks a lot about opportunities and the work that we do in the district. So thank everybody on that side of the house for another great summer of visits and videos about transparency, about saying we do what we do with the money. The public has an opportunity to go to WCSDbuildings.com and say, here's the list and here's where it's happening, and I think that's powerful. So thank you so much.
Okay, and Dr. Taylor, and then Vice President Raymond.
Thank you, Madam President. Certainly, thanks to all that have been involved. This is, you guys are clearly working very, very hard, and it's actually very exciting. So I appreciate you taking the opportunity to have this on the agenda, and ask that you just continue to do this every so often, whatever is appropriate, because not only do we get to stay on top of it, but it's good for the public to see, here are the things, areas that we're looking at, and so on. It's there's a lot going on, and it's very, very exciting. So it's very cool. So thank you, and I just wanted to say how exciting it is to be able to really build schools and see this stuff happening. Since it's been only 22 months and so much is happening. Wow. So thank you so much, Adam.
Is it my turn?
Yes, go
okay. Yeah, thank you. It was very informative. And I just wanted to comment that I'm really happy to see that I think we're being good stewards of the taxpayer money that, is dedicated to building and updating our schools. And I think Verdi actually, to me, represents a really good example of that, where it'd be easy to kind of see the development and sort of panic and just put all the energy there and build, where, I think to me, I've felt from the presentations from staff around the zoning and, our demographer is commenting that there's just not enough that we know. And I know it's a hard timing thing because you don't want to end up with an overcrowded school. But, if the housing prices aren't going to be at the point for, families with young children, then we end up with a half-empty school. And I think these are good examples of how we're really being thoughtful about our choices and not just kind of reacting to the growth irrationally. So I really appreciated learning more about that, because I think it is, as a trustee, something I hear like, they're building all these houses. Why aren't you building more schools yet? And so I think this is good, backup for me to go out with and talk to people about. So thank you.
Well, again, thank you so much for all the hard work. It is truly amazing. I can't imagine any public entity anywhere that has as aggressive a capital improvement plan as we do. So, and being managed well and being executed well and on time. So thank you so much. And again, thank you, Superintendent, for reminding people that they can go to WCSDbuilding.com and get all the information and drone flyovers and webcam photos and see the progress. And we also want to say a thank you. I've heard from some neighbors of some of our projects that have taken it on themselves to be part of our security team and are shining lights on the building site so that we're keeping them safe. So we thank those folks as well. It's really been a community effort, so thank you. Okay, we don't have any action to take on that one, so, oh, we do. No, we don't. We don't. Okay. Thank you so much. Awesome. Next up, Emily. 3.03, discussion and consideration of preliminary approval for the proposed revision of Board Policy 4214, drug-free workplace, which includes revision of language related to alcohol, controlled substance, prescription medication, and tobacco e-cigarette possession and use by staff, and initiation of the 13-day public review and comment period. Oh, and Mr. Lasik is here as well. All right, the dynamic duo. Is there anything you want to tell us in highlighting what's going on with this policy, which we have seen?
Sure, yeah. We've been here before to talk about this policy. During the last public comment period, our colleagues in transportation did have some feedback, and we added some language to Section 3B regarding district employees that are required to maintain a commercial driver's license, which of course is a percentage of our workforce. And as a condition of employment, for example, school bus drivers are required to comply with applicable federal laws and regulations related to transportation and the use of controlled substances, and should be aware that marijuana, to include medical marijuana, is an illegal substance under federal law. So that was important feedback. We made that change and then wanted to bring it before you again for discussion and action.
Okay, thank you. Any comments? Did we receive any comments so far from anyone else? Okay.
I don't believe so.
And is there a motion? Oh, do we have any public comment? No. Okay. Yes, Trustee Frankel.
No, and I appreciate this, and I think it's a great reflection of why we have this process the way we do, and we get good feedback, and we build it into our draft policies, and I think I really am happy to have gotten that feedback. So thank you for making the change and bringing it back to us. I move that the Board of Trustees provides preliminary approval for the proposed revision of Board Policy 4214, drug-free workplace, and initiates the 13-day public review and comment period.
Okay. Second by Dr. Taylor. Motion by Trustee Frankel. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay. We'll move into board reports. Anyone want to begin? Trustee Taylor, you want to begin?
Sure, I'll begin. The only thing I really want to just point out is on Sunday there's just a group of local faith leaders that went around the community to various places and just wish well as we start the new year, offer prayers. Ours was bilingual, and our CEO, Pete, and I were there. They came here, met us at the district in the parking lot.
Great.
And it was just great. It was a diverse group of people that came, and just and as they went around the community, one, it's good to see that the school district is included. And that, I know they did things for the county and the city and several law enforcement agencies and so on. Just, in terms of our schools being safe, kids being safe, and so on. So it was just an honor to represent us there and to be there with Mr. Etcher.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Taylor.
Never done it before, so I thought it was cool. It was
That's
cool.
wonderful.
Very cool.
Great. Dr. Feemster, would you like to share anything? Okay. All right. Vice President Raymond?
I'll just touch on a couple things that I know we were all at the Spotlight event. It was truly a wonderful way to showcase Mount Rose and all the work that they're doing, but especially the civics class that President Simon Holland and I got to speak with prior to the Spotlight event, and it was just a really awesome group of kids who had great questions for us, but a perfect example of how, just touching that small group of, 14, 15 kids, the ripple effect that can have, and the thought, after their presentation, that some of them might be future leaders in the district or the state or the nation. So it was really cool to look at it from that perspective. And then I wanted to just also mention the thank you breakfast, the community thank you breakfast. It was really an honor to be there, not just to introduce with President Simon Holland, the superintendent, but to get to talk to so many of the community groups that are doing incredible work in the schools and with our teachers and students. And so it was very special morning, and I wish we could do it every month and just have time. Those were my people. So, and then the last thing I'll talk about is I've mentioned before that I've been part of a kind of ongoing conversation with the city of Reno around their Sierra Kids program and just kind of what that looks like in different schools, and had another meeting last week with Councilman Bobzian and some of the team there, and just excited to see that, some of the work that started more than a year ago with that group is continuing, and there's great things happening. So that's it.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Frankel. Okay. Well, I wanted to share a few things I've been doing. It's been a busy time. Had a great visit at KNPB with General Manager Kurt Mischke, and hearing about all of the educational resources that they provide to our educators is phenomenal. I had no idea the extent of resources that they provide, including a writing contest that they do with elementary school children, and they actually, for the winners of the program, they actually publish their story with illustrations, and it's just amazing. So if you have the opportunity to go visit KNPB and see what they're doing for us, it's truly remarkable. Really enjoyed the civics class, as Vice President Raymond mentioned. Had a great talk with your trustee, with Trustee Taylor at Clayton, and had lively discussion, and really want to thank the staff for the follow-up for every issue that was raised. Immediately had staff responses to those that we were able to get back to folks, and they were truly impressed and really grateful for that. I had a great meeting with Tiffany Young on equity and diversity, and we'll be coming back to you, trustees, with Mr. Lasik with some options for some time for us to meet before the end of the year on some equity training, which we're looking forward to. Had a great student discussion circle with the leadership class at Incline Middle School last Friday, similar to what we did with the civics class. They were much quieter than the group at Mount Rose, but very interested in dress code, and we got some new learning about dress code policies, and really had some fun with them. Met with the president of DRI yesterday, and they are also interested in ways that we can all be partnering together. And then also met yesterday with staff from Food Bank in Northern Nevada, and I wanted to thank Dr. McNeil and others who are working on a pretty interdisciplinary food security and economic stability initiative that the school district could be really a home for, which is really groundbreaking work, and I'm just so proud of our staff for being engaged in that work. So thank you for all of that good work, everybody, and I'll turn it over to the superintendent. Oh, yes. Do you want to give us a report? How about what's been going on with the Student Advisory Committee or others?
Next week is our third meeting of the year, and we're going to be having our elections for president and first vice, second vice, and secretary. And so far, there's 3 members that are running for president, and I am one of them. It's gonna be a really interesting meeting because all of the new members, including all the members that served the past 3 years. It's really interesting to see how all of us have developed our views into kind of like a similar way, because all of us really serve on the board for to really recognize student voice and give everyone represent everyone in an equal manner. But honestly, this board, there's going to be a lot of changes this year, but it's going to be a really good year. I can feel it. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Your meeting so we can all come.
The second Tuesday usually, or second Tuesday of every month.
Yeah.
Or third Tuesday. Yeah.
Third Tuesday. Yeah. Excellent.
No, they're like 3:30 or 4:30. Yeah. 4.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're really good.
All right. Thank you so much, and thanks for being here today. Appreciate that. Okay, Superintendent.
So I'll go backwards. I'm super excited about this year's Student Advisory Board. They are like on fire, and what's really cool is we're going to kind of change elections, and Chief HR is going to come in, and we're going to hold like interviews with the candidates that are not running. So she's going to share with them our model, how we hire individuals, and we're going to simulate some of that as we look to determine who is going to be, I'm laughing at you just because of how it all happened, become president. And we have fine candidates across, right? Like a lot of great students, and our newcomers are super active and happy to be involved. So I'm really excited about the work you guys will do this year. As we talked about the community thank you breakfast, so I definitely want to thank President and Vice President. It was a great time, because if you think about, we can't do this by ourselves, and the wraparound service that are provided to our students is amazing. And so I agree, it would be great if we could have that every month, but we already hogged the Dolan Auto Group. And I was just there today. Today kicked off Till Tuesday, so the deputy and I went to Till Tuesday, and that's where our school leadership groups in elementary start working on the work. They were doing Nevada Kids Reads today, and so a lot of great work. Shout out to Dolan Auto Group. I mean, I think we use them a lot. I'm like, are we the only ones that you allowed to use this? So they have been super special in their partnership with us. Also, last week, OSS kicked off at the Lazy 5 Library, and I was super excited about it because it was around the corner from my house, and I had to drive all the way down. But OSS is doing some wonderful things. There were over 60 employees there just doing activities and then talking about the work and where they wanted to go with the students. The commander challenged me to do some dance, and I told him as soon as he could do it, then I would do it. But there's a lot of good energy around that. Pete, Office of Student Support. Yeah, I know. Thank you. Want to thank Pete and Angie for being a part of that community group that came around to pray. I couldn't be here, and I called Pete up, and I'm like, Pete, can you do this with me? But I think what's really great is, Pastor Manera is a leader of that, but they always partner with us on how to disengage people in the community. And so he's always offered his church for us to do a variety of discussions and have parents come in, because that's a safe place for parents. So allow us to come in, Delisa, come in with some things with Parent University. So we are super proud of that work. President Simon, thank you for meeting with our equity leader, Tiffany. A lot of good work happening in the district. It's hard work, but we're having some courageous conversations, and we're all learning from each other about what's happening, as I see the deputy smile over there. But great work happening, and so happy that the board is going to be engaged in this work. And so that's super exciting. And I'll close with, we had a chance to visit Melton and Galena last week. The riot squad at Galena is over the top. And we have shirts, so we'll be at one game. So one of the things we're trying to do is to get to not just the work on the academic side, but how we think it's important for kids to be engaged in activities. So to get to one school activity, which is super hard because there's so many, but we got our Riot Squad shirts, so we're going to be in the stands acting like college kids and high school kids for the Galena game, and so super excited about the work that's going on in our schools, and everybody's doing just amazing work as we do school visits and the walks we're doing with instructional walks and things like that, so amazing stuff happening.
Very good. Okay. All right, and I just wanted to quickly announce that, let's see, tomorrow night there is a benefit at Dolan Lexus for our culinary arts program. Yeah, AACT. Yeah, so we got an invitation to that. So make sure if you can get there, that would be great too. Okay, do we have any future agenda item requests at this time, Vice President Raymond?
So on the heels of my meeting with the City of Reno, Councilman Bobzian and I were just talking about some of the various ways that the City of Reno partners with the school district, including Sierra Kids, but beyond that. And it just occurred to me that maybe there'd be an opportunity to have Councilman Bobzian as like the liaison to the school district between the city come, and I'm sure that he would have to bring staff from the city with him to talk, but just to kind of highlight some of those ways that we partner with the city, and then maybe that in the future too could lead to other presentations down the line from the county or the city of Sparks or other, of those. And we've sort of had a running theme of kind of these presentations with community partners. So I thought that would be a nice one to add to the list.
Great. Okay. Any others? Okay. Is there any additional public comment?
Elise Weatherly. I think she might have left, though. John Eppolito.
Welcome back, Mr. Eppolito.
My name is John Eppolito. I'm the president of Protect Nevada Children. Yes, Katie, this theft of our children's data is a national issue, not a state issue. For 3 years, we've been attempting to educate this board. Because of us, this board knows more about the dangers of free third-party vendors than most teachers, administrators, parents, legislators, and most school board members in the country. I'm pretty sure that until today, 1.5 years after the fact, the district has never said anything publicly about the Edmodo data breach. Was the statement today to protect children or to protect the district? Yes, Edmodo did make a very weak statement about the data breach. What they didn't say is that student emails, student usernames, and hashed passwords were for sale on the dark web. Even if they had, we don't think most districts use student IDs for student email addresses and student usernames like Washoe County School District does. In Clark County, the student district email address does not include their student IDs. That ID number is the number used to track children from the cradle to the grave by both Infinite Campus and the State Department of Education. An incredible amount of personal data. Parents cannot see it all. That's why it's so important when there is a data breach and that student ID gets in the hands of others. We are very concerned about that. There will be more data breaches and more third-party vendors will merge. Even if there's never another data breach like we've had, questionable entities, possibly more foreign governments, will get their hands on student profiles that use these third-party vendors that are created by our children. I gave you guys 3 articles. 2 are education. 1 is pretty much from the left, very concerned about getting the data in the hands of the Chinese. This one's written by a retired teacher who's very concerned about this data in the hands of the Chinese. And this one's written by someone on the right who's a Harvard Law School graduate. She's also very concerned. The left and right do agree on this. We've been asking the same thing for 3 years. Please educate parents on all aspects of using these products. So far, all you've done is cover things up, push things off, wait 1.5 years. Are you going to tell parents their kid's hand is now in the hands of a Chinese company? Their Edmodo student profile is in the hands of a Chinese company. Their student ID is in the hands of a Chinese company. Are you going to tell parents? Are you going to tell them in 1.5 years? Are you going to tell them tomorrow? I think I know the answer. Also, this district email address. Let us opt out of our district email address. 2 years ago, 441 of us opted out. Somehow they automatically got created without letting us know. It's wrong. And if, well, I would invite you guys, but my time's almost up. Should I finish or not? We will be on everything. These 3 articles will be posted on Protect Nevada Children, our Facebook page, Protect Nevada Children. Within another month or so, we'll be on 1080 AM for an hour with Mon. And we would like you guys to come if you're willing. Otherwise, it'll just be us talking behind your back.
Okay, thank you, John. And I do want to just say that there's not an effort in our statements to protect, but rather to let you know that we hear you, and we are interested, and I have followed up on some of the things you've said, and we will continue to. Thank you. Okay, any other public comment? All right, thank you very much. We will consider ourselves adjourned.